Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, just a few, or here's an overview of what to expect. So I'll start with a quick intro to GW, and then I'm going to turn it over to our faculty presenter, Professor Blecker, who's going to share more about the graduate programs in history. The presentation is going to last about 15 minutes or so, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And then we'll have time for live Q&A. We have a hard stop at 11:45, so just make sure you ask your questions during the session so we can get them answered. And you can ask those questions at any time during using the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. We will address them at the end of the presentation. So hi, everyone. I am Seb Nevi. I'm the Assistant Director for Graduate Recruitment in the Office of Graduate Studies for the Columbia College of Arts and Sciences here at the George Washington University. We welcome you to our History of Graduate Programs information session. And we're going to start with an intro to GW. So the George Washington University is located here in the heart of Washington, D.C. As the largest institution of higher education in the U.S. Capitol, GW welcomes 11,000 undergraduates and nearly 14,000 graduate students from more than 130 countries, helping foster a vibrant and global community. Our main campus is just 4 blocks from the White House and is close to world-renowned government agencies, nonprofits, and private sector organizations, giving students unparalleled opportunities for internships, research, and career advancement. Within GW, the Columbia College of Arts and Sciences, or CCAS as we call it, is the largest academic unit. We are home to 5,000 undergraduates and over 2,000 graduate students. We also offer more than 90 graduate programs, 93 to be exact for this year. We have nearly 500 full-time faculty who are dedicated to collaboration, critical thinking, and applied learning. And with an average of 20 million in annual research funding, CCAS students and faculty help advance innovation and tackle real-world challenges. So now I'm pleased to turn it over to Professor Blecker to share more with you about the graduate programs in history.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Professor Blecker. I'm the Director of Graduate Studies in the History Department. My area actually is in Islamic Studies, Middle East Studies, and I'm writing a book right now on Islam and the spice trade. Our chair is Denver Brunsman. He's a wonderful person. He wanted to be here today. Both he and my colleague Katrin Schulteis, the master's program advisor, both wanted to be here today. Denver's an early Americanist. He actually focuses on George Washington, on the history of George Washington himself. And Katrin Schulteis is a specialist in modern French history. So, why get a graduate degree in history at GW? And we want to say now that it's where the traditional thinking has really dramatically changed. It's not just a degree that will prepare you for life in the academy or higher education. We really think you need to think more broadly about what you can do with an MA and PhD. Our graduates go on to work for the federal government, the State Department. They've gone on to work for the DoD, House of Representatives. They work in research archives, museum work, cultural institutions, the DC area, private industry, nonprofits. And Washington, D.C. is great. It's really perfectly positioned for our graduate students to network in these areas. Um, and the graduate programs are really geared toward providing students with a solid grounding in historical research and methods, enabling them to pursue their individual intellectual passions. Um, okay, why come to GW for your history graduate degree? We have amazing faculty, which I'll say more about later. We have 35 faculty who work on a range of fields. You have direct access to the world's greatest collections of historical source materials. You're a few metro stops away from the National Library of Congress, the National Archives, the Smithsonian Museums when they're open, when they're not shut down, the National Library of Medicine, the National Security Archives, the Folger Shakespeare Library is here too. Dumbarton Oaks, which is not listed on here, is amazing for Byzantine history and for kind of history of medicine. We also have a consortium of university programs, so we partner with universities in the DC area like Howard, Georgetown, American Catholic, Maryland, George Mason, um, and we share, our library. Our libraries have a consortium, so we can check out books from all of those different institutions. We can take classes at their institutions. Their students come and take classes with us. So, and there are just endless opportunities for talks and conferences in history. Um, I think the Middle East Studies Association comes here every other year, for instance, to DC. So sometimes you don't even have to pay for a ticket to go to a conference. And it's really true. It's really the case that it's sometimes you have multiple talks double booked, so it's hard. You kind of have to find you kind of have to learn to say no to going to things. There's so much happening here. So yeah, our faculty, I mentioned the range of expertise we have. We have scholars who work on African American history, Cold War history. We have real strengths there. And Asia is another strength. And our faculty are award-winning scholars, teachers. You'll see us featured. Our books, get written up in the New Yorker. You'll see us on TV from time to time, and we as a department really do, really think about how our scholarship, how it can engage the public, and we encourage that amongst our colleagues, and we encourage that with our graduate students too. And I think that's hopefully what, part of what you would be preparing for if you came here for a degree, as to think both how to do the kind of scholarly specialization and research and expertise, but also learn how to make your ideas intelligible to the larger public. What's the difference between an MA and a PhD? This is a really good question, especially, for folks coming right out of undergrad. An MA is a really versatile degree. It takes about 2 years to complete. Um, it's it gives you broad training in historical research and historiography in a wide variety of fields. You can do an MA full time. You can be part time. You can work. A lot of our MA students work. We try to schedule our classes actually. Many of our faculty try to schedule classes in the evening so that our MA students can work and take classes at the same time. The MA can be a great stepping stone if you're interested in getting a PhD. And it can really help prepare. It can help you figure out what you want to do your doctoral work on, what you want to specialize in, and give you a little extra time to get maybe some language training or some specialized training you need before going up for the PhD. And but for an MA, really only modest financial assistance is available. And we can talk a little bit more about of the financing in a bit. The PhD, by contrast, this is a professional research degree, and this is a much more serious investment of your time. You do about 2 years of coursework, just like the MA students do. But you will work very closely and independently under the supervision of an advisor, and you'll be expected to produce a dissertation that makes a significant original contribution to the field. And typically, it takes students between 5 and 8 years to complete their degrees. And on the flip side, you're actually, in a sense, employed as teaching assistant. You'll get a stipend and a tuition waiver. Um, and But I will say that usually we only have a few slots every year for PhD students. So admission is highly competitive. I think we had maybe 60 or 70 applications last year for only 3 spots. So it's really more of a job, a full-time job that you're kind of dedicating yourself as a student um, to um, to come here, and you have to be enrolled full-time, and students, as I said, usually receive about 5 years of funding total, 4 of which are supported by this teaching assistantship. One, you'll have, it's called duty-free 1 year, where you can go off into the archives and just research and write and live out the dream of a scholar. And then, for those later years, oftentimes students apply for fellowships, postdocs, dissertation completion fellowships to try to get them over the finish line. Okay, so the MA course of study, there's basically 2 required courses students usually take in their first year. One is called Introduction to Historiography. It's just how to do, like, how the discipline of history works. What are the big debates in the field? It's kind of helps professionalize you as an historian. And same thing with the research and writing required course. It really helps focus on how you're to kind of strengthen your writing skills as a professional historian, and teach you how historians, how you implement research methods and strategies. So, and this is great because basically your whole cohort gets together and you meet people who are interested in very different things from you, but you're all working together in this shared discipline of history. Um, and then, of course, you have electives. You can take 8 more courses for a total of 30 credits. And you can do that. Some of them you'll do at GW, some of them maybe you'll find a really interesting course at Georgetown, and you can sign up for a course there. And you can really personalize your program of study. For your second year, students usually, as an MA, usually kind of decide, do I want to go on a thesis track and kind of produce a sustained piece of writing, work closely with a faculty mentor, and kind of try writing, a more in-depth research project, which can be really good practice if you're going to apply for a PhD program, or if you want to publish an article, or just get a feeling for what that might be like. Then the thesis is great. It is a much more serious commitment to a specialized project, but they can be very rewarding. Other students get to the second year and they decide, hey, I, I'm I'm not quite as interested in just dedicating this year to one particular project. Instead, I'd like to um, maybe explore a few different research papers. Then students can choose to do that instead. And many of our students choose to take that route. Instead of a thesis, and there's no right way. And we're just yeah, so we're just trying to give our MA students multiple paths to completing the degree. And for students who want that more specialized, focused course of study, they can pursue a thesis. And for those who don't, they don't, you wouldn't need to do that. Here's the requirements. They're all listed on the website. Just highlighting here, the GRE scores are not required, um, but you do need a BA, obviously, from college. A common question is, do I need a BA in history to get into MA program? And the answer is no, you do not need a BA in history. We sometimes have students who, got a biology degree, and they realized, they did that for their parents. Their parents really wanted them to do biology or go to medical school or something like that, and their heart just wasn't in it. And their heart was really interested in history. And they if you put together a really compelling statement of purpose, this is this could be sufficient. This certainly could be sufficient. So there's no requirement that you have to, have a history or even history related field coming from college. A recent writing sample is really good. Also, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be from a history course you took, just something that shows us, that, yeah, it gives us a sense of who you are as a student. Um, and you see the application deadline here. And yeah, and just note, yeah, this February 1st, if you want to be considered for some partial tuition awards, like these are certain ways you can try to lower the cost of the MA. So keep an eye out for this. Because financing your degree it definitely is expensive. It's definitely commitment of financial resources. Um, we tried to calculate it out for you so you could see exactly what it was. And in 25, 26, the rate is $2,091 per credit hour, which amounts to about $60,000 for 30 credits. And students who, if you have started your MA degree elsewhere, you can transfer 6 credits of relevant coursework to the GW MA program, which can help, lower the cost here. As I mentioned earlier, there are some competitive partial tuition awards of various kinds, and you can email our MA advisor, Professor Katrin Schulte. I should be happy to talk to you about those kinds of opportunities. There also are work opportunities on campus, some part-time campus employment. Sometimes, we need someone to teach, actually to be a TA. We don't have enough PhD students to do it. So sometimes we'll find someone at the MA level who's really interested in getting some experience teaching. Um, and you can learn about other fellowships on the Office of Graduate Assistantships and Fellowships website, which is marked right here. Okay. All right, the PhD. So the PhD, it usually starts out just the same way um, as the MA course of study. Um, if you're already coming in with an MA, it's shortened. You kind of skip ahead a semester. But like the MA students, you'll take this introduction to historiography and the historical research and writing, usually in your first year. Sometimes, with scheduling conflicts and whatnot, sometimes we can push it back to your second year. But basically, after you're done with this period of coursework, you don't write a thesis. What you do instead is you start to study for your what's called comprehensive exams. And this is where you've worked with a prospective advisor to kind of figure out what your main field is going to be, your main field of specialization. And then you're going to find 2 other faculty members who can help examine you in other related fields. Um, so um, So yeah, and those can be thematically related, like you're interested in women's history in your period. Maybe you go and you find another professor who works on gender and sexuality studies, history in our history department, even if they're not related to your exact field of your period and your region that you're interested in. And this is really just meant to give you a general grounding so that you could list this on your CV, go teach courses in this area, and feel like you have a general understanding of what's going on in the field before you specialize in your dissertation for a few years. After you pass these 3 exams, it's both a written and an oral exam. Then you propose a dissertation, and to your advisor and a committee of other faculty readers. And this is really a great chance to get that kind of critical feedback that you're craving, before try to send this out and publish it as a book, before you try to send it out and publish different chapters as articles, you're going to get, a close look from faculty members here who are going to help make sure this is a doable project, a manageable project, a project of original significance to the field, or of consequence to the field. So, and you typically, after you propose your dissertation, you propose your dissertation, you're considered ABD, all but dissertation. And typically, then our students take their duty-free fellowship year, where they're not expected to teach or assistant, a grade or do any teaching assistance. And oftentimes, our graduate students, they go, they're on the cutting edge. They'll go to China, to go dig around archives there. They'll go. Spend a year in Turkey, um, doing field work. And you're supported by your fellowship while you're out there, and you have no expectations that you'll be here on campus, and that's where you get a lot of your research done, and maybe even start doing some of the writing. So after our hopefully, usually in your fifth, sixth year, you're ready to defend. And you know, the life of a dissertation, a lot of things can come up, can happen. You can, you know, certain life events can push back your timeline. That you weren't expecting. So sometimes it takes students a little bit longer, 7 years, sometimes 8 years, to finish. But I will say that, when we looked at this, sorry, um, when we looked at this, when we tried to collect data on our PhDs who got tenure track positions, we found that actually, about a third of them found placements. Is that right? About a third of them found placements. About a fifth got job, in tenure track academic positions. About a fifth got jobs working in the private sector. About a sixth got hired to work in the government. And we also found that despite the extremely tight academic job market, and it really depends again which field of specialization you're going into, there's kind of these mini sub markets within the bigger academic job market, that you can also apply for these 1, 2, 3 year postdoctoral fellowships, or you can get hired by archives or nonprofit organizations. And I will say, these numbers are pretty common at many, you'll find at many competing academic institutions. And it's unusual to see, just with the state of the current academic job market, it would be unusual to see, a larger proportion of students getting academic jobs. And that's just something for you to, be sober and clear-eyed about coming into a PhD degree, that it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily, it's a degree that will take your career in a number of different paths, and not necessarily just to a tenure track, uh, a path. Okay, so the requirements here are similar to the MA. Um, GRE is also not required. I will say, just in giving some advice to prospective students, um, probably the most important thing here is your statement of purpose. And in particular, your statement of purpose should mention faculty that you plan to work with by name. And I would also say that contacting faculty you want to work with, in particular your prospective primary advisor, go look at our website, look at our core faculty, look at the themes, regions, and periods that they work on, and really think about, reach out to the person that you want to work closely with, and find out, first of all, if they're even taking graduate students. Sometimes they're going on sabbatical, and sometimes they already have, a few graduate students, and they're not ready to take on another one yet. Sometimes they're planning to retire next year, and that's a reason why they're not taking on graduate students. But it's really important to reach out and find out what's going on. If your research interests align, and then if they do, try to find a few other faculty members that you think might, say, be willing to, support your project in some way, maybe as a comprehensive examiner or a second or third reader. And then list all of those faculty members in your statement of purpose, because we may not even get them from our admissions committee if we're not mentioned in your statement of purpose. So if you really want to do Middle East studies or Islamic study or Islamic history and you don't mention my name, I may not see your application. Um, or if you know, want to work on early American history, or you want to make sure you mention the faculty members that you want to work with so that they actually are flagged. Hey, Professor Brunsvin, take a look at this application. This student said that they want to work with you. And having, I think, a clear, manageable, a clear idea of a statement of purpose, one that's manageable, is another good, is, is another good advice for a PhD applicant. Because at the PhD level, we're looking for someone who really has a clear idea, is able to hit the ground running, has a clear idea of where they're going, what their dissertation is going to be on. Um, Obviously, you don't have to be married to the project you propose, but it should be in the general area. And so, all right, what else can I say? Um, I'm happy to answer more questions about this. Um, all right, funding for PhD students. I talked about this already, so I won't repeat myself here. Um, um, Summer funding I didn't mention. It's sometimes available. We sometimes have some summer funding available from different endowments and different buckets of department level support. We try to make them available to students. Obviously, it's not guaranteed, but we do try each year to make funds available for students in the summer, either to do some research or to travel for their research. Sometimes we have department funds available for students to present their research at scholarly conferences. And we really try to help our students do that. And in years where there's been budget crises and faculty haven't been able to go present their research at scholarly conferences, we made sure our graduate students got the funds before we did. So it's something that we really try to support. Um, and then there's these competitive, similar to the MA thing, there are some additional research and teaching fellowships and grants that are on a competitive basis. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that. Okay, yeah, this last slide, maybe before taking questions. Yeah, we do take seriously our commitment to inclusion, diversity, and equity. Um, we have, you know, we have as a department put together I think this is maybe a bit more relevant for graduate students in particular, is we put together a department graduate student, a bill of graduate student rights, or kind of graduate student bill of rights, that really outlines specific things, different specific ways in which, you know, that graduate students academic freedom and freedom from freedom from discrimination is can be is implemented in our department or protected or the ways in which we're committed to it in our department. And you can read more about it. It's on our website and you can look at it in more detail. And I also would just add that this is, you know, these commitments are also reflected in our admissions process, which we really aspire to consider the full applicant, all that they can offer, regardless of their background, all that they can offer to the department and to GW. And yeah, so for more information, you can click on all of these links. I'm the main point of contact for the PhD program. My colleague who couldn't be here today, the MA advisor, Professor Katrin Schulteis, she's the person to contact if you're interested in any MA related questions. And then of course our department chair he's really quite personable and approachable. He really wanted to be here with you all today. And he's a really funny, very warm gentleman. So, you should feel free to reach out to him too, and he can always find the right person to talk to. But honestly, especially if you're in the PhD, you're interested in PhD, contact individual faculty members directly. You can write them cold and just ask them, hey, does my research interest align? Would you be interested in supervising a project like this? Are you taking graduate students on? And just ask them point blank. And and they will reply. They'll get back to you. So with that, thank you. Thanks for your attention. And I can